Holy smokes, guys. Tech Day just happened. It was 3 hours long. So much information said, and I will be summing up all the key points in this one short video. There's a lot of stuff that the CEO said which is aimed directly at shareholders. First, they started off by introducing NIO's full autonomous driving package and NIO's full stack solution. And he started talking about R&D. And first he said everyone says service is good, but it feels like we don't have anything else. Service isn't good enough from his standard, and we need to also draw a focus on his global R&D footprint and how NIO starts with R&D from the very bottom. He said that they are in 6 countries, 13 cities, and they all have R&D headquarters there. And then he said something personal. He said he received a personal message from XPeng's CEO sharing his concern about NIO's R&D spending. And it was basically the day before this happened, yesterday. XPeng launched the G9, and they had a mutual friend that was there. And XPeng CEO told him to pass the message on to William Li, and how William Li should be careful about R&D spending and not spend that much on R&D. It's very interesting how William Li shared this on stage with everybody. He said this, and then he said he directly addressed this. He said, how long do you view your return on investment? In terms of R&D, he believes that it is very important to improve efficiency, but the intensity will maintain at about 20% of revenue, and that is the target for R&D going forward. And it's very important that they continue to innovate and stay ahead. Now, NIO, for the first half of 2023, they had R&D expense ratio of 32% compared to revenue. So obviously this needs to come down a little bit. In terms of R&D scale, they have 11,000 R&D employees, 7,300 plus patents. And NIO's fundamental thinking for R&D and innovation is that what kind of value can it create for the users? Also considering the lifespan of 5 to 6 years and beyond for a vehicle. How do you improve the ownership experience for the entire duration of the car and not just when they buy the car? The phrase he used was ecosystem efficiency. Now, he talked about NIO's smart system, and it's not just a hardware or software system, but an integration of both. He said how you need to maintain the entire ownership experience even after 10 years. Make it so that the car is still good and doesn't have any problems down the line. So he said the bottom software level has to be different compared to its peers. And that's why they named all their software systems after trees. For example, aspen, alder, banyan. The idea of it is that even after 10 years, it's healthy and there's people taking care of it. Next, he started talking about batteries. First of all, how NIOs are chargeable, swappable, and upgradable. And he emphasized how they put chargeable in front, because many people seem to forget that NIOs are chargeable and very fast at charging as well. And then he said all the platforms use a unified battery pack dimension, very different from the peers. And you'll see the full benefits of it, especially when you recycle it. And for others, how do you do maintenance on it even after years later? For NIO, it's very simple. For now, they have 1,800 swap stations, and he admitted that EU swap stations were a little bit slower, but will catch up later. He talked about the greatness of this unified battery pack is that people realize you don't have to buy the biggest battery pack and just rent the higher capacity battery when you need it. And he says 90% of the customers right now choose the standard battery pack. So first of all, you don't need to carry a heavier battery pack. You save money, but also very importantly, this is the missing point, the materials save, because there's less material needed to make a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack. So it is also very eco-friendly. Also on the charger side, he talked about how NIO really works hard to help install home chargers wherever possible for NIO owners, and this really just elevates the ownership experience of EVs so much higher. And he said that they even help negotiate with property management, especially places that don't allow you to install home chargers. They will go and negotiate for you guys. And then he, of course, leaked some very good news. And the good news is that the charging business is profitable and very, very profitable, according to him. Then he talked about how do we improve the ecosystem. First, there's three parts: Smart EV, User Enterprise, and Global Operations. Smart EV is pretty self-explanatory: build a good product, intelligent. User Enterprise is the focus of the company, which is to give the customers what they want, users first, great service, fulfill customer needs. Global Operations means multi-brand, multi-platform, multi-region. Then he talked about NIO's full stack solution, which is to push technology forward. First, chip and smart hardware, and they're really putting effort into it, software and hardware wise. And if you can't integrate them seamlessly, you will not have the best experience. So for them, they started off with Mobileye, Atom, Nomi, etc. This year at April, they upgraded Atom to become a multi-domain fusion chip, and it has 16 gigabytes of bandwidth, a 20% reduction of mass, a 40% reduction of size. 4 Orin X has many features not released yet. Part of the processing power is used to power the entire computer. And then they also announced the newest LiDAR SoC, the NX6031 chip. First self-developed chip, very successful. 8-core, 64-bit, 9-bit, 1 gigahertz, 8 sampling channels. 50% energy efficiency, 30% time latency improvement, 8 million points clouds per second. Improves performance, but also more importantly, margins. And this is one really important point that he said. They are using short-term R&D funds for long-term margins. I want you guys, shareholders, to remember this. They're spending a big amount on R&D right now, but that's for the benefit of long-term high margins. Next, he talked about LiDAR chips have better performances than the FPGA chips, and they can see in more detail. The chip team has about 800 people. This investment does need money. Need to maintain R&D for a long time for success. They have teams in Hefei, Shanghai, Hangzhou, Shenzhen, San Jose. It's a global team, and they are working very hard. Next, they talked more about the battery system, how Unipack throughout the life cycle of the Unipack, it's a very different thinking and approach to it. The cost of battery is not long-term battery, but also the recycle cost, the cost of lost materials, etc. This is should be considered into the total cost of the battery. And for that front, NIO's cost of battery is actually quite good. R&D has lots of focus. Every generation of battery pack, although the same size, but has lots of improvements in like energy performance and also temperature performance, etc., etc. There's steady progress on new battery R&D, and then they have a leaked picture from half a year ago, and this is their self-developed battery, which is very nice. They are working to make everything in-house. Then he talked about the inverter and powertrain, how he built their own powertrain team at the very start of the founding of the company. They thought about buying powertrain, but then nobody's really willing to sell them their powertrain. So they really worked hard on building their own powertrain since the very beginning. And up to now, there's 6 different motors and then 3 generations of motors. Right now, it's the 3rd gen motors with 30% improvement. They're also working on 900 volt architecture. Very important. Cool. And then he talks about how software defines vehicles. And then there's the fast iteration of smart EVs, needs to balance individual needs and efficiency. And then he talked about how do we quickly innovate and make things better. 2 motor systems, 1 battery pack, 1 processing system. There's a lot of things that are the same within a lot of the cars, but there's also things that are very, very different, like full aluminum or aluminum hybrid, and they're even experimenting with aluminum carbon fiber for future vehicles. And then he really emphasized the ICC, intelligent chassis controller, lots of good feedback from owners. And then this is a very good look into the future vehicle operating system. Since software defines the vehicle, there's Sky OS, which includes MCU, CPU, GPU, NPU, and then Sky OS C, which is based on Android, and then there's CMR, and NT1 is just base, basically base Sky OS, and the NT2 is Sky OS L, and then later on we're going to have Sky OS, which is going to be fully self-developed by NIO. That is going to be amazing. And then he talked about connectivity. NIO Link is the car-centered ecosystem. There's more emphasis on this in the phone announcement, but then he talks about how we must start from the center, incorporating the industry standards, but also our own touch to improve the connectivity of the vehicle. And then next, they talked about autonomous driving, which is very cool, how NOP and NOP Plus has gotten over 500 million kilometers. Smart cabin includes panel cinema, Nomi, etc. And then about to open up the ecosystem to third-party developers with App Store, more than 40 plus apps available. And then for a lot of these apps, it's the first time that they're debuting on a car. So NIO right now, they're going to come out with a lot of apps like Little Red Book, which is like Instagram, the car version, first release. Tencent parking app, first release, so you can easily pay your parking fee no matter where you are. And then there's NIO's Power app. Lots of downloads, even though without promoting it, it is good to use. And this is actually for this is not on the car. This is just a phone, Android phone app, and also on iOS as well. And a lot of third-party non-NIO owners are also downloading that. And then he talked about how 4th gen swap station will be available next year. Also, super fast chargers are also being worked on. Self-developed cars right now, there's a total combination of 3,592,320 total possible combinations for 8 vehicle models, for their 8 vehicle models. So for example, changing the color variants and all that kind of stuff. And then, but they've achieved 21 days duration from order to delivery. So that is very, very impressive. And then it shows that they can control the diversity and difficulty, which means they have very good bottom level strength. So they talked about how the factory has 90 kilometers of 100 gigabyte high-speed looped network assembly island with AGV, very upgradable smart AS/RS with RGV, very cool. And then motor developments, they have 30 technicians, 300,000 motor capacity, single shift per year. So he said they are not worried about production, but just demand. And then he said AI will become a core capability of smart EVs, and they are actually the world's first assembly island with AGV. Then he talked about global digital operations. How do we duplicate our service and system for other areas? And he admitted that it is indeed very difficult to duplicate everything abroad. Quickly realized the shortcomings in Europe, and it's not that easy to duplicate abroad. And then he said the delivery of 5 vehicles within the last 4 months was a very good validation and proves that service factor and overall efficiency is very good. And then how NIO has invested in over 80 supply chain companies, 300 plus supply partners. And then he also talked about powering the future of talent, how even during the darkest hours of 2019 when they were struggling with cash on hand, they did not stop funding those scholarship programs for the success of the future.